Welcome to Rare Breed Brotherhood. The more you tolerate, the more people take advantage of you. The day you stop caring is the day you start winning. Sigma males don't wake up one morning and decide to become cold-hearted. It happens slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a door quietly closing after too many betrayals, disappointments, and lessons learned the hard way. They start off open, observant, and willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. But the more they see how easily people lie, how often kindness is mistaken for weakness, how loyalty is a dying virtue, the more they withdraw, not out of bitterness but out of necessity. This isn't about being heartless, it's about survival. It's about realizing that in a world where most people operate on self-interest, keeping your emotions guarded is not just an option, it's a strategy. Sigma males don't stop feeling, they just stop showing it. They don't stop caring. They just become selective about who they care for, and that's not something to regret. It's something to embrace, because while the world rewards the loud and the manipulative, it respects those who can stand alone. If you've ever felt yourself growing distant, more detached, less willing to engage in the usual social games, it's not a flaw. It's a sign that you've seen too much to pretend anymore. It's proof that you're evolving into someone who refuses to be controlled by emotions, illusions, or false promises. Some will call it cold, but you know it's just clarity. Let's get started, brothers. Number 1, repeated betrayal becomes a lesson, not a wound. Most people feel betrayal like a stab to the heart, painful, shocking, and deeply personal. Sigma males, they feel it like data being uploaded into their system. Every time someone deceives them, lets them down, or proves unreliable, it doesn't just hurt, it teaches. They don't drown in self-pity or waste time asking why someone did them wrong. Instead, they step back, analyze, and take notes. They see patterns where others see coincidences. The friend who suddenly disappears when they're needed, the partner who says one thing but does another, the colleague who smiles to their face but sabotages them behind their back. These aren't isolated incidents, they are lessons. And Sigma males don't fail the same test twice. This shift in mindset is what separates them from the rest. Most people allow betrayal to make them bitter, drowning in resentment. But Sigma males, they refine their understanding of human nature. They stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically. They learn when to keep their guard up, when to test someone's loyalty, and most importantly, when to walk away without a word. Trust stops being something they give freely. It becomes a currency that must be earned. While others desperately cling to relationships, hoping people will change, Sigma males accept reality as it is. They don't waste energy trying to fix what's broken. Instead, they adapt. They learn to operate in a world where deception is common, loyalty is rare, and only fools believe words without matching actions. To outsiders, this transformation can seem cold, even ruthless, but in reality, it's just self-preservation at its highest form. Sigma males don't become heartless, they become selective. And in a world where blind trust is a weakness, that's not just smart, that's survival. Number 2, they stop expecting people to operate on their level. Sigma males don't start out cold, they don't walk into life assuming they're different or expecting to stand alone. In the beginning, they try. They engage, they connect, they even give people the benefit of the doubt. But over time, reality hits them. Most people don't think like they do. They see patterns where others see randomness. They dissect situations with logic while others react emotionally. They crave depth, yet they're surrounded by people content with surface-level interactions. And at some point, they get tired of trying to bridge that gap. At first, it's frustrating. They question whether they're the problem, whether they expect too much. But after enough letdowns, they stop expecting it all. They realize that most people won't match their level of depth, discipline, or independence, not because they can't, but because they don't want to. And there's no changing that, so they adapt. But not by lowering their standards. Instead, they detach. They stop seeking intellectual or emotional reciprocity. They no longer expect people to keep up with their logic, their ambition, or their way of viewing the world. They don't waste time explaining their mindset to those who aren't wired the same way. Instead of getting frustrated, they go silent. Instead of feeling disappointed, they become indifferent. This shift reinforces the cold exterior people often associate with them. It's not that they lack emotion, it's that they refuse to waste energy where it won't be understood or appreciated. They stop chasing depth in shallow places And once they embrace this, there's no going back. They move through life with a quiet understanding. Most people won't operate on their level, and that's fine. They don't need validation, approval, or companionship to feel complete. They carve their own path, fully aware that walking alone is better than waiting for the world to catch up. Number 3. They develop a ruthless efficiency that leaves no room for sentiment. Sigma males don't set out to become emotionally detached, it just happens. The world constantly forces them to choose between effectiveness and sentiment, and over time they start picking efficiency every time. They learn that emotions, especially the softer ones, can be liabilities. Sentimentality makes people hesitate. It keeps them stuck in places they've outgrown, tied to people who drain them, and tangled in decisions that should have been made long ago. And Sigma males, they refuse to live that way. At first they try to balance logic and emotion. They attempt to hold on to meaningful connections, to nurture relationships while still maintaining their personal growth. But experience teaches them a harsh truth. The more they prioritize efficiency, the less patience they have for anything that slows them down. They stop entertaining people who bring unnecessary drama. They cut off relationships that feel one-sided. They remove distractions, no matter how emotionally attached they once were. This transition is subtle at first. They start responding with fewer words, making quicker decisions, and disengaging from emotional conversations that serve no real purpose. People notice the shift, sensing that they've become colder, more distant. And in a way, it's true, they no longer invest in emotions that don't serve a purpose. It's not that Sigma males can't feel. They just refuse to let emotions dictate their actions. They see life as a system, and they refine it with brutal precision. Everything must have a function. If a relationship, an activity, or even a habit isn't serving their growth, it's cut. No hesitation, no guilt. This ruthless efficiency makes them appear almost robotic to outsiders. But for them, it's just a necessity. In a world where sentimentality often leads to stagnation, Sigma males choose forward motion over nostalgia, logic over attachment, and strategy over feeling. And once they embrace this mindset, there's no going back. Number 4, they recognize that vulnerability is a currency most people devalue. Sigma males don't start off as cold, they start off as open. They believe, like most people, that honesty and vulnerability build deeper connections, that sharing their struggles, fears, and insecurities will be met with understanding, maybe even loyalty. But life has a brutal way of proving otherwise. At first, they don't see it. They think they're just being unlucky, trusting the wrong people, confiding in the wrong ears. But after a while, the pattern becomes undeniable. They notice how some people use their openness as ammunition, twisting their words to their advantage. How others act indifferent, as if their struggles don't matter. How their pain, when shared, is often met with either betrayal or indifference. That's when something shifts. Sigma males realize that vulnerability isn't seen as valuable, it's seen as expendable. People respect strength, not emotional exposure. They listen to power, not pleas. And in a world that thrives on competition, revealing too much is like handing out weapons and expecting no one to use them. So they adapt. They stop explaining themselves. They stop sharing their deeper emotions with just anyone. Not because they lack feelings, but because they understand how the world works. They know that most people aren't capable of handling raw honesty with care. And they refuse to let their emotions be someone else's entertainment, gossip, or leverage. This doesn't mean they lack depth. It means they control access to it. They aren't emotionally numb, they're emotionally disciplined. Only those who prove themselves worthy get a glimpse beneath the surface. And if no one qualifies, so be it. They'd rather walk alone with their dignity intact than risk being dissected by those who don't deserve to know them. To outsiders, this emotional distance looks cold. But to Sigma males, it's just reality. And they don't waste time fighting against reality, they master it. Number 5, they get tired of being the strong one. Being strong isn't a choice for Sigma males, it's an expectation. People see their independence, their ability to handle chaos, and their unshakable presence, and they assume he doesn't need help. So they lean on him. They bring him their problems, their fears, their failures, knowing he won't crumble under the weight. And for a while he carries it all without question. But then one day reality hits. He realizes that while he's been a rock for everyone else, no one has been a rock for him. When he stumbles, there's no hand reaching out. When life gets heavy, there's no one offering to share the load. People appreciate his strength, but they don't reciprocate it. And that's when something inside him shifts. He stops offering his energy so freely, not because he's selfish, but because he's tired. Tired of being the one who always listens, always helps, always fixes, but never receives the same in return. Tired of giving without being given to. Tired of being seen as indestructible, when in reality he's just as human as everyone else. This is where the coldness begins. It doesn't come from bitterness, it comes from understanding. Understanding that most people don't truly care for him, they care for what he provides. And if they only value his strength when it benefits them, then maybe his strength is better spent elsewhere. So he detaches. He stops being the emotional safety net. He withdraws from one-sided relationships. And to those who once depended on him, it looks like he's turned cold. But in truth, he's just done giving endlessly to people who never once thought to ask, "How are you holding up?" He's still strong, but now that strength belongs to him. Number 6, they witness how easily people lie, even over trivial things. Sigma males don't just hear words, they analyze them. They pay attention to what's said, what's not said, and how actions either confirm or contradict those words. And after years of observation, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Most people lie, not just about big things, but about the smallest, most unnecessary details. At first they brush it off. A little white lie here, an exaggerated story there, it seems harmless. But as they keep watching, the pattern becomes painfully clear. Someone says, "Let's catch up soon," but never follows through. Another person claims to always be honest, yet twists the truth when it benefits them. They see people give fake smiles, pretend to care, flatter when they don't mean it, and make promises they never intended to keep. And the worst part? Most of these lies serve no real purpose other than convenience. This is what truly changes them. It's not just betrayal from close friends or backstabbing colleagues, it's the realization that dishonesty is everywhere. That deception isn't just a survival tool for some, but a casual habit for many. They see how people lie to avoid confrontation, to maintain appearances, to manipulate, or simply because it's easier than telling the truth. And once Sigma males fully grasp this reality, their entire approach to human interaction shifts. They stop expecting authenticity. They stop taking words at face value. They stop assuming sincerity is the default. Instead, they trust only what is proven. They measure people by consistency, not empty gestures. They learn to read between the lines, to see past the masks, to spot deception before it unfolds. And in doing so, they become more distant, more guarded. Not because they want to be, but because experience has forced them to be. To others, this makes them seem cold, detached, even cynical. But Sigma males aren't bitter, they're just realistic. When you've seen how easily people lie, believing in honesty becomes a luxury you can no longer afford. Number 7, they realize that people respect power, not kindness. Sigma males don't start off cold. In fact, many of them begin their journey with a strong sense of fairness, integrity, and even kindness. They believe in treating people well, being understanding, and leading with decency. But then reality hits, and it hits hard. They start noticing something unsettling. Kindness is often mistaken for weakness. Being patient with people only invites them to take advantage. Offering help makes them a target for endless requests. Showing empathy, that just means others assume they can dump their emotional baggage on them without ever reciprocating. At first, Sigma males try to rationalize it. Maybe they just encountered the wrong people. Maybe if they explain themselves better, set firmer boundaries, or choose their words more carefully, things will change. But as time passes, a brutal truth becomes impossible to ignore. Most people don't respect kindness. They respect power. And so they adjust. They stop leading with warmth and start leading with quiet dominance. They no longer waste time trying to be liked. Instead, they focus on control. Control over themselves, their emotions, their actions, and most importantly, their boundaries. They learn that people respond to confidence, assertiveness, and an unshakable presence far more than they ever do to kindness. And once this shift happens, something else follows. The warmth fades. Not because they want to be cold, but because experience has forced them to be. They stop offering second chances. They stop explaining themselves. They stop expecting decency in return for decency. If people only understand power, then power is what they will wield. This change doesn't make them cruel, it makes them efficient. They no longer waste energy on people who don't deserve it. They move with calculated precision, knowing that in a world that preys on the soft-hearted, their survival depends on becoming untouchable. And so, the kindness that once defined them, it becomes a relic of the past, an old version of themselves they can no longer afford to be. Number 8, they learn that being misunderstood is inevitable and stop explaining themselves. Sigma males don't just wake up one day and decide to stop explaining themselves. It's a slow, painful realization that no matter how clearly they speak, most people will never truly get them. At first they try. They assume that if they articulate their thoughts well enough, people will understand their way of thinking. But time and time again they're met with blank stares, judgment, or shallow responses that miss the point entirely. It's not that they expect everyone to agree with them, but they at least expect some effort to listen. Instead, they find that most people don't care to understand, only to react. That's when they start pulling back. They stop explaining their choices, their values, their reasons for walking away. They realize that the people who truly matter don't need an explanation, and the ones demanding one will never accept it anyway. If someone misinterprets their silence as arrogance, so be it. If they assume their emotional detachment is bitterness, that's not their problem. Sigma males reach a point where they simply don't have the patience to translate their mindset for people who lack the depth to comprehend it. This shift makes them seem even colder. Without explanations, without justifications, their actions become more enigmatic, sometimes even intimidating. But the truth is, they're just done wasting energy. They see no point in defending their choices to those who refuse to see beyond the surface. No point in debating with people who only want to argue, not understand. No point in proving themselves to an audience that will never appreciate the depth of their reasoning. So they let the world misunderstand them. They let people assume whatever they want. And in doing so, they achieve something rare, complete liberation. They no longer seek validation, approval, or understanding. They move in silence, make decisions without hesitation, and let their actions, not their words, speak for them. Because at the end of the day, a Sigma male doesn't need to be understood. He only needs to be undisturbed. Number 9, they see time as too precious for emotional clutter. For Sigma males, time isn't just something to pass. It's their most valuable resource. And once they fully grasp this, their entire outlook on relationships and emotions shifts. They don't just wake up one day and decide to become emotionally detached. It happens gradually, shaped by repeated disappointments, wasted energy, and moments where they realize they've invested in people who weren't worth it. They start seeing how much time they've lost on pointless arguments, fake friendships, and emotional roller coasters that led nowhere. That's when it clicks. Every hour spent on unnecessary emotional drama is an hour stolen from their goals, their growth, and their true purpose. So they start cutting the fat. They stop entertaining people who thrive on uncertainty. If someone is inconsistent, flaky, or emotionally chaotic, they won't fight for clarity. They'll simply walk away. They have no time to decipher mixed signals or untangle manipulative mind games. If a connection doesn't feel solid, it's discarded. They also eliminate drama at the root. They don't get dragged into petty conflicts or emotional outbursts because to them it's all noise, distractions that take them away from what actually matters. And while others get tangled in emotional messes, Sigma males are busy moving forward, making things happen. But the most striking part, they don't even feel bad about it. Once they reach this level of clarity, emotional ties become an afterthought. They still experience emotions, but they no longer let them dictate their decisions. Instead, they prioritize efficiency, productivity, and inner peace over temporary emotional highs or draining relationships. This mindset makes them seem distant, maybe even cold. But in reality, they've just decided that their time is too precious to waste on people and situations that don't add real value. And once they start living this way, there's no turning back. The distractions fade, the noise disappears, and all that's left is a Sigma male completely locked in on what actually matters. Number 10, they internalize that survival demands self-preservation over connection. Sigma males don't start out emotionally distant. Like anyone else, they crave connection, trust, and meaningful bonds. But life has a way of teaching brutal lessons, and one of the hardest is this. If you prioritize others at the cost of yourself, you will be left drained, used, and discarded. They learn this the hard way. They give their loyalty freely, only to see it abused. They offer their time and energy only to watch it go unappreciated. They invest in relationships, friendships, and even family bonds, only to realize that most people take more than they give. After enough cycles of this, a shift happens. They stop assuming that connection is a given and start seeing it as a luxury, one they can't afford if it threatens their own stability. At first it feels unnatural. They resist becoming guarded because it goes against their nature. But the more they observe, the more they see a pattern. Those who are too open, too trusting, and too emotionally invested often end up at the mercy of others. So they adapt. Self-preservation becomes the priority, not because they've lost their humanity, but because they've realized that no one is looking out for them the way they must look out for themselves. This doesn't mean they stop caring entirely, but they do change how they care. They no longer pour their energy into people who wouldn't do the same for them. They stop giving second chances to those who've proven they don't deserve them. They learn to walk away, cut ties, and move forward without hesitation. To the outside world, this transformation looks like coldness. In reality, it's survival. It's the natural response of someone who has learned through experience that being too open in a world full of hidden agendas is a weakness, so they evolve. They protect themselves first, knowing that the few who truly understand won't need an explanation. Number 11, they get tired of investing in people who can't match their depth. Sigma males don't crave attention, but they do crave depth. They aren't interested in pointless small talk, fake friendships, or relationships built on convenience. They seek real conversations, real connections, something with substance. But here's the problem. Most people don't operate on that level. At first they try. They invest time, effort, and emotional energy into relationships, hoping for something meaningful. They listen deeply, offer valuable insights, and show genuine care. But over time, they start noticing a pattern. Most people don't reciprocate. They skim the surface, avoid uncomfortable truths, and prefer distractions over depth. They talk in circles, but never really say anything. And worst of all, they take without giving. Sigma males begin to see relationships like investments. They pour in their energy, only to realize they're getting nothing in return. The conversations feel one-sided. The connections feel hollow. And instead of being inspired or challenged, they just feel drained. That's when something shifts. Rather than continue wasting time on people who can't meet them at their level, they withdraw. They become more selective with who gets access to their thoughts, their time, and their emotions. They stop forcing conversations that aren't stimulating. They stop waiting for people to match their energy. If someone can't bring depth, purpose, or genuine curiosity to the table, the Sigma male simply walks away, without explanation, without regret. To those on the outside, this emotional distance might seem cold, but in reality, it's self-preservation. Sigma males understand that their time and mental energy are limited, and they refuse to waste either on meaningless interactions. They'd rather be alone with their thoughts than surrounded by people who can't think beyond the surface. This is why they seem distant, detached, even intimidating. It's not that they don't care, it's that they refuse to settle for anything less than real. In the end, the price of strength and why it's worth it. Becoming cold-hearted isn't a choice for Sigma males, it's a consequence of seeing too much, understanding too deeply, and realizing that the world doesn't operate on fairness, but on power, awareness, and self-preservation. But here's the truth, what others see as coldness is actually control. What they mistake for emotional detachment is simply a refusal to be manipulated. Sigma males don't shut down because they've lost their humanity. They shut down because they've learned that not everyone deserves access to it, and that's not a weakness, that's wisdom. The world will always try to guilt you into being more open, more forgiving, more vulnerable, because a man without defenses is easier to influence. but you've seen what happens to those who let their guard down too often. You've watched as people with good hearts get broken, used, and discarded. You've learned that survival doesn't reward those who wait for kindness. It rewards those who know when to stand alone. So if you ever question why you've become the way you are, remember this. You didn't harden without reason. You adapted, you evolved. And in a world that thrives on deception, your ability to stay sharp, controlled, and untouchable isn't a flaw, it's your greatest strength. Let others call it cold. Let them misunderstand. You don't owe them an explanation, because deep down, you know the truth. Only those strong enough to walk alone ever truly find their own path. And you were never meant to follow. Thank you for watching. God bless you.